Hey everybody, I'm really sorry this took me so long to get back to you, but there's always so much going on here in Uganda. I hope you can hear the beautiful night sounds, and I'm surrounded by trees. I'm not in the village right now, so that's why I'm able to send you this video. I wanted to answer the remaining questions that you all had, so I'm just going to go through those here, and if you have any more, happy to answer. So the first question is, can you please describe the stages of installing the water pump? For example, how long does it take? How much does it cost? Who takes care of it? How pure is the water that comes out of it? What happens if it breaks? I'm going to start with the last point. So before we plan any project, or during the planning process, we always move at the speed of trust with the communities and sit down and genuinely build real human-to-human relationships. This is so important. It's actually one of the most important parts of our work. Drilling is hard, and construction is hard. It has its own issues, but the people side, you really can't rush it. I'll say that. And every little culture and every little area and every village and every school is just so different, and you really need to build that trust so that long term we're able to make sure that there's operations and maintenance, and they maintain savings accounts, and they maintain their wash committee to make sure the projects are being cleaned and taken care of and used properly. How pure is the water? We test the water for, I think, 30 parameters with National Water. We take a sample, and we don't open the borehole until we get that water quality test back. If there's ever any issue, what we would typically run into is turbidity or solids in the water. Sometimes that's from drilling, so we'll test it again. But then there's very low chances of bacteria because we're drilling so deep. Where the cleanliness and issues come in is really in the containers that people are collecting water in, and that's why we have filters in the classrooms. Who takes care of it? The wash committee, the school, the community, depending on the setting. And how much does it cost? A borehole can be around $15,000. We use stainless steel instead of galvanized iron. It's stronger, it lasts longer, it doesn't rust in people's water, and you don't have to change the pipes every 6 months. But there is some basic other maintenance that has to happen that's very low cost annually. Drilling, I've seen it all. It can take 2 days, it can take 3 days, it can take a week, depending on the type of drilling you're doing. So we a lot of times end up drilling with air drilling, which is a shorter amount of time, but again, it's a process you can't rush. Sometimes you have to let the well rest and then continue. If the walls of the hole are collapsing, then sometimes you have to move to drilling with water. So we actually put water inside, mix it with a polymer to hold the walls up, so we can actually get down in the hole and it doesn't keep collapsing on itself. That takes a little bit longer and is a very interesting process. So the steps and stages are surveying with a hydrologist. So this is someone who studied geology, has a hydrologist certification, and then they are going to find the likely spots for where there might be water and attempt to decipher how deep we think we should drill. A lot of our boreholes are 90 meters in most of the areas we work in, so multiply that times 3, and that's how many feet. And then we drill. Then we put in permanent casings. They're like 5.5, 6 inch blue permanent casings that'll last 100 years, and those become like kind of the wall of the borehole all the way down. You design it a little bit differently based on the water levels. Some of those casings, as you get down farther, will have slits in the side so that water can seep in, depending on where we reach water. Sometimes there's an open bottom design where there's a hard rock and it's just open, collecting groundwater from the sides. So it's all different designs when you get down in there, and you don't know how to design it until you actually do the drilling and you refer to your survey report. Then we blow out the water, which is really, really fun. We put a tube in, compressed air, and you put it in the hole and water shoots out. So you may have seen a picture of that at some point. It's really fun. And then we let it rest for about a week and come back and we do test pumping. So we literally blow water out of the hole for 3 hours, unless we're going to develop it into a piped water system, and then it's for 3 days straight. So there's a generator, there's a special measuring tape with an electronic thing that you put down in the hole. And what you do is, as you're blowing out the water and you let it rest in these intervals, you can tell the static water level. That's what tells you how far you have to install the stainless steel pipes that actually are the ones that suck up the water when you're pumping. Then during that process, we take the water quality sample, deliver it to National Water. It takes about a week. And then we install the borehole. So we build the apron, the cement apron, and the drainage, and we put the hand pump in and weld a lock, and then the community contributes fencing to protect it from animals and people messing around. So all of that happens, and then we get to open it, which is really, really fun. And a lot of the people in these rural areas who have lived there as their whole lives, some people have never pumped a borehole. I met an 80-year-old woman once who had gone to the swamp her whole life for water and then got to pump this borehole in the village. So those kind of things are very exciting. The next question is, did you encounter an experience and/or event that inspired you to start DLDT? Well, I've always cared a lot about people, the planet, animals, human rights, all of that stuff. And water was one way that I could tie all the things I cared about together. And I started my first nonprofit when I was 16 years old, helping the homeless in Cleveland. I volunteered at Big Brothers Big Sisters, Habitat for Humanity, soup kitchens on Sundays at a church in downtown Cleveland. I've always had that volunteering kind of give back mindset. And so I guess it's always been part of me. I'm actually gonna go inside now. I guess it's always been part of me, and yeah, it's just something that I have to do. Now, the thing that actually allowed me to start DLDT was I had a really good professor in college who believed in my idea and helped me get started. So I can never thank Professor Nick Zingali enough. He's really the reason that I was able to do it, and someone who believed in me. So I think we all have someone in our lives who believes in us, and I encourage you to share your dreams with those people, because you never know what can happen. So, how did you get all the supplies? This is the next question. How did you get all of the supplies and materials to Uganda for water projects? Well, this is a very good question. We don't use any materials in Uganda that can't be purchased in Uganda. And the reason is, for operations and maintenance of these projects, these things are moving infrastructure and buildings and everything. So you have to have a local system and supply chain to replace little parts and have the borehole pump mechanics come out and someone to fix the gutters and those types of things. So we looked for the best available solutions within Uganda and the best people too. We have an amazing team here in Uganda. In fact, one of our teammates has been with me since the very first project, which is really, really special. And I'll tell you a little bit more about our team. We have an operations manager who oversees all the relationships with the governments and our programming in the community. And then our technical coordinator is a female engineer in her late 20s. She's absolutely amazing. And we have field officers. So Fiona and Susan go into the field, is what we call it, and do monitoring and build these community relationships and do planning and all of that. And so they have a really, really hard job that takes a lot of patience because you have to move at the speed of people changing behavior and everything. Many people have never felt running water on their hands. They've never had soap for hand washing, which they now have to purchase through their savings accounts. They might have not used a borehole. They might have not gone to the bathroom in a building. Maybe they've been having to do open defecation is the word term for it. They've been going to the bathroom outside their whole life, which is especially not safe for little girls, but it's not sanitary, and there's a whole host of issues that go along with that. So the whole world right now is trying to get open defecation free. So we think everybody should have a basic, safely managed toilet at home. And that's going to look different than our toilets in the US. They're not flush toilets. We're working in water stressed areas. So we also build these toilets, and not having a safe toilet at school is one of the number one reasons kids drop out, especially little girls. So I can tell you more about that sometime if you'd like, but I kind of got away from your question there. So, is it difficult emotionally to work for DLDT? That's the next question. Oh, I might even cry a little bit right now. That's a really good question. Um, yeah, yeah, it's hard. But you have to stay strong because these are people's lives and we're all working together to make it a little better. We really try to, even our Ugandan staff, team members, employees here, they may have lived in different situations in their lives that had some of this walking for water, not having a toilet, those kinds of things. But it can be really hard for all of us because once we meet a community or a school, there's always a need, and it's really hard to pick who gets the help next. And so we've had to make decision-making processes to say, okay, this school has been on the waiting list longer, or there's more kids here, or anything. But we work in last mile communities, and so we're working in very economically poor communities, some that don't even really use money as a currency. Some families in the main area we work in Nakasongola, they might make $4 a month if they're lucky as a family. And so we're working in extreme poverty areas, and it's heavy. And we've also worked in some refugee areas and displaced people areas and those types of things. So yeah, it's a lot to carry. And I have to constantly remind myself that I can't do it all. When I was a teenager, I thought I had to solve every single problem in the world, which is why I ended up co-writing the book, Make Waves for Change, that's for teenagers, because I think it can help a teenager focus on one issue, any issue they care about, to make a difference. And if we all do something, anything, for a problem that we care about, then that's how the world moves in the right direction. So it's very easy to feel paralyzed or stuck or hopeless. And I think by taking action, those feelings can go away because you feel the difference you're making no matter what you're doing. If you're volunteering at a soup kitchen or cleaning up the beach or just helping open the door for someone, anything, just being kind, all of those things are really important to move the world in the right direction. Okay, the Okay. Oh, there's more questions. Sorry. Okay. How often does Aaron go to Uganda and for how long? I'm here about 3 times a year. Right now, I'm on my 2 month trip, and then I probably come for a month 2 other times. So that's changing over time. And my job here is also changing over time. Back in the day, I was on every single construction site and sitting there all day in the hot sun and learning about every part of the process and asking questions and becoming an expert in this field. And now I'm hosting donors and supporters and board members, and we're even hosting a group of teens from Pittsburgh this summer who are raising funds for some toilets and a borehole and coming on like a cultural conservation volunteering kind of trip. But we're very careful with volunteering because we don't want it to look like we're taking away jobs from local people. 83% of Uganda is unemployed. And so we really want to make sure that unless there's someone who's a professional mason or plumber who actually has a skill set to offer and learn from each other, that we really try to avoid the volunteering parts of our work. And the construction is dangerous. So I'm here kind of hosting people sometimes, and I love showing Uganda to people. Uh, every country has its issues, and I know there are many here and many back home, but at the end of the day, it's still inspiring and exciting to show off the amazing people in Uganda, the hospitality, the local food, the values in the village, the simple way of life. It's really refreshing. And all the wildlife, too. Lions and elephants and giraffes and water buffalo, rhinos. I love rhinos and elephants. Monkeys, a million types of birds. It's so beautiful here. More questions. What has been your impact to date? How many wells, latrines, and hand washing stations have you built? I have to look at all those numbers. I don't know them off the top of my head, but I can get those to you. We every single day in Uganda, over 57,000 people are getting clean water because of us, and over 20,000 people have safe sanitation because of us, so safe toilets. Right now, we've been doing projects one by one by one, and what we're doing now is we mapped using a tool called M-Water. We mapped an entire district. Districts here are kind of like states in the US, and we mapped every single school, so over 155 schools, to bridge the gap in any of their water, sanitation, and hygiene. So maybe they have water, but it's not clean water. Maybe they have safe toilets, but they don't have hand washing. So we're bridging the gaps, and we have a really big plan that we're going to be working on for the next 3 years to try and help every single school. Is there a language barrier with the children and people? Yeah, I speak some local language. Oliotia, Osibiotia, Wasuzotia, good morning, good afternoon, how are you? I love it here because people walk up to anyone and say, Jebaleko, Jebaleko. Jebaleko means well done. So when you run into someone, you're saying, well done for the day. And then you say it back to the other person. It's just a very friendly exchange. It's like, hey, I know you're working hard. And it's beautiful. But I don't speak fluently, but I know enough to break the ice and do my work here. So, does DLDT help with water projects in other countries or just Uganda? Just Uganda. And the reason is to hyper focus on something. You learn culture and government and policy and partnerships and employees and laws. And there's a lot of rules to follow and reporting. So becoming an expert in one place has really been our strategy, and I think it's working well for us. And what's interesting too is we do water, sanitation, and hygiene. Some organizations just do water or sanitation or trainings or whatever. And that's all fine, but because we're doing it holistically, we're going really deep in the communities that we work in, and not really spreading ourselves thin, kind of just like maybe tossing a rain tank over here and a filter over here and whatever. So we're really trying to go deep with the communities we serve, and we don't have any plans to exit Uganda. Africa as a continent right now, actually where I am right now, I'm at the Africa Water and Sanitation Conference, and leaders from every African country are here who manage water and sanitation for their countries. It's very interesting to hear about the issues that people are facing. And I think over time, what should and will happen is Africa starts to own more of its water and sanitation. And so there's a lot of big focus on urban and city water and those types of things and developing that. Where we work in the rural areas, we're really trying to help the kids and families in the last mile, because those are the last people who are going to get help. That's what that means. And so they need help today, and maybe down the line, 30 years from now, 40 years, I don't even know, maybe they will have different systems. But for now, we have generations of kids that are going to be going to these schools who need these facilities. So we partner with the government here in that we're kind of topping up what they're doing and complementing their work, because they don't have enough money to do it all. So the next question is, how far do they travel and how do they get water? People get water from swamps. Sometimes there's like crocodiles and stuff in the swamps and snakes that can be extremely dangerous and take people's lives. I've heard lots of stories at a lot of schools we work at. Sometimes dams, and again, sometimes someone falls in. A lot of time the kids try to go to like out into the water, into the dam, which is just like a pit full of water. And a lot of times they build these for cows for getting their water. So they're sharing this with animals. And what happens is this water is super contaminated. I've seen green water, and the kids will try to go out a couple meters, and sometimes they get stuck or drown, and they shouldn't really go alone to these sources. Sometimes they have to cross busy roads to go to a borehole or a tap or something like that. So they face all types of things walking. And the global average is that people walk 4 miles a day to collect water. But in Uganda, it varies. I'll tell you what, though, those jerry cans are very heavy. If you've lifted one in your classroom when Miss Heather has been there, they are very, very heavy, and I wouldn't want to walk 10 feet with it. So, yeah, they walk. A lot of times I would say the average is probably they spend an hour to 2 hours collecting water, and maybe 2 or 3 kilometers away. But I've also met schools who walk 7 miles. So, and pay someone at the lake to go to the middle of the lake and get a container. So there's all sorts of situations. And tapped water is becoming a bigger thing, and rural tapped water in these very rural areas. We have a couple piped water systems, but you need enough groundwater in the borehole you drill to then like solar pump it up to a tank on a tower, and then the gravity pulls it to taps around villages and schools. So there's that option too for some people. And getting people used to paying a small fee for the water so that the projects can be maintained is a very big behavior change that we deal with and spend a lot of time, inspiring that behavior and building that. So, like I said, the people stuff takes time, and if you do it right, it's worth it because the projects last. The last question I have is, how can we help the people in Uganda? Do they need more jugs to carry water, store water in? I would say that they buy their jerry cans here. They're very affordable. They're about $1. and most families and schools and everything have them. Um, you can buy filters for a school. You can raise money for a part of a project, building a toilet, building a hand washing facility, building a water project. We build all types of water projects. So we have plastic, protected, beautiful above ground rainwater systems that collect rainwater from rooftops and go to a tap. We have underground rainwater storage systems for bigger schools. The biggest one is 220,000 liters. You can shift that into American language, but that feeds over 3,000 kids at 2 schools in a more urban area. And so we build all types of projects, and the toilets we build are drainable. And what that means, we kind of build a septic tank underground, and then every 5 to 10 years, depending on their use, a tanker truck comes in, sucks all the waste out, and then they continue to use it. And our toilet blocks should last at least about 30 years, maybe more. I haven't been around 30 years to see, but we see some of like how long some of the older ones last, and they weren't built as strong as ours are, so we're imagining at least a 30-year lifespan. So supporting any of those projects, kids will dance, be happy, teachers will be happy. Even the teachers need these facilities. Everybody forgets about the teachers, but they need motivation to go to that school. Most of these teachers make $100 a month and they're away from their families. They get moved around the country to different schools. And so building nice facilities for them that are where they can have dignity, going to the toilet, and they can have clean water and not get sick, in addition to all of the other things that is a burden in their day-to-day life. I think that's the most important thing, besides raising awareness. So you can raise awareness about these issues with people in your school, where if in your mosque, your church, your synagogue, wherever you have other groups of people that you're around, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your parents' workplaces, any place really, you can make a difference by just making people aware of the problem, and they'll want to know how to help too. So I just want to say, I really appreciate your questions. And if you have more, I'm always here for you. Thank you for being Wavemakers. And for those of you who were able to join the Zoom in Uganda, that's always really fun for me. And I ended up talking to those kids for about an hour after the Zoom. They had a lot of questions for me and about you all. So thank you for joining if you did. And if not, I hope you got to watch the recording. All right. Good night from here. Sulu Balunji.